so nervous to be doing this. I have actually filmed this video probably 3 or 4 times. It is very, very personal and very emotional, but I wanted to do this because, and it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. It's something I've been talking to friends and family about. I do want to start a channel to talk and explain mental health, because as much as mental health is starting to be more talked about, it is also not very much talked about as it should be. Even me, when I was sick, I didn't know all my information and I thought I did. And sorry, I keep looking over here because I have a long list, because I do not want to forget anything, because this is super, super important to me. And my friends and my family, all the time, they make comments. They were like, how are you so open about your mental illness? And I'm like, well, I mean, it is what it is. You know, some people aren't like that, and that's okay. But I thought, since I'm very open about it, that I should talk about it, because I want to help people. I do not want anybody to feel like how I felt when I hit rock bottom. I want them to know the warning signs. I want them to get help when they need it. That kind of stuff. And sorry, I have a really long list, and I don't want to miss anything, because this is really, really important to me. And one of the things I'm mainly going to talk about, from what I've researched on YouTube, there's not a lot on it. And it is a very, 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 very special place in my heart, because it is the one thing that I almost let ruin my life and take my life. Just a warning: if you're sensitive to anything within suicide or, you know, panic attack, just anything triggering, this is not the video for you to be watching. It's basically just from my backstory and information on an illness. Sorry, I keep saying a lot and I keep interrupting myself, but yep, but trigger warnings, most definitely. I'm going to be very, very blunt. I feel like blunt works for me. I like when people tell me how it is straightforward, and so that's what I am going to do. So, in 2019, I was diagnosed with OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, BPD, which is borderline personality disorder. I have depression, I have anxiety, I have a panic disorder, I have postpartum depression, and PTSD, and some addiction struggles. So, nice little cocktail. But on this video, I mainly want to focus on OCD. It is huge to me in my life, and I want to be able to say something or do something, or someone can watch this and relate, so they do not go through what I went through alone, because I didn't know what I thought. But I'll get into it later. The next video I will be making is about BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, and let me tell you, me and BPD, we do not get along. Sometimes BPD is a lot worse for people if that's the only thing they have. Mine most definitely affects my life. I need therapy for it. I do not need medication for it, but I go to therapy and I talk about it, and it's okay, and I'm able to cope with that. But my OCD is what's really big to me. And with my borderline personality disorder, which if anybody doesn't know what that is, it is unstable moods. You feel things stronger or less than the normal people. Like for me, if I'm happy, I feel happy times 2 of what the normal person would feel. Vice versa, if I'm sad, I would feel that times 2 than what the normal person would feel if they're sad. BPD can sometimes, most of the time, lead to very unstable relationships. It can lead to a lot of addictions. Not so much, I mean, it can, of drugs, but and other people. You become very attached. I will get into that. That's going to be a very, very emotional video for me, because there is somebody very, very close to my heart who I feel like I will never get over, and you know what, that's okay, because I'm finding ways to cope with that and mature and grow and to be okay. Again, sorry, I keep looking over at this. I do not want to forget anything. Oh, also sleep paralysis. I'm gonna make a nice little video about that. So I'm gonna go over my backstory and my childhood and what happened to me last year and what led up to me getting sick, and then leading up to me learning and being informed and educated on this mental disorder. So I had a pretty normal childhood. I grew up with my little brother and my mom and my grandma mainly. Me and my brother had like the normal Kentucky, you know, growing up, always playing outside. He's my best friend, you know, we would just do the most craziest stuff and we always had fun. Nothing traumatic. My grandfather died when I was 5. I don't remember, but my mom said that impacted me kind of badly. She said I started having panic attacks at 5 years old. I do not remember them, thankfully. Pretty normal, pretty happy. Bullied in school a little bit, but that was about it. Nothing extreme. My brother, I remember, what can I use? So, I had this thing when I was little, and I still get it sometimes. And these couple things that I'm going to talk about when I was little was nothing that affected me greatly. Like, it didn't affect the way I lived. It was just little odd things I would do, little rituals I would do. So, my brother used to always make fun of me, and I'm going to use my Zoloft bottle. It's the only thing I have close to me, and I needed it anyway. So, if I would drop something on the ground, I would have to pick it back up and drop it again until it felt right. Like, kind of like the way I did it before. Sorry, my nose itches, it's cold in here. My brother just always used to make fun of me for that. I didn't really think about it, but we just always laughed about it. Like, I'm his bigger sister and I'm acting weird and dropping things and picking them back up. Another thing I used to do, this kind of started when I was older and I was in high school. Me and my friends, we would go walking around this, like on the strip, and if I hit my foot a certain way on the concrete, I would have to hit it that way again and hit it that way again and until it felt right. And anybody with OCDs knows what I'm talking about when it feels right. It's the same, it's just really just odd things. But mainly that was about it. We always knew I was a little different. I didn't handle things normally. Like, if I got in trouble, I would be 10 times more upset than the normal child, or I would lash out. But again, nothing extreme, no therapy needed. I was just Lana, and that's how people knew me as. To this day, everybody knows me as very stubborn and very hard-headed, but that's okay. That is the way I get through this world. But in 2019, in February, I gave birth to the cutest little boy ever. He's right up here. His name is Hayden Kai, and he's perfect. He is an angel. He's the cutest baby I've ever seen, and I know everybody says it about their babies, but he is the cutest baby I've ever seen. He's perfect. I had a pretty normal pregnancy. I didn't really get sick a lot. The only thing that really bothered me, I got really bad nosebleeds, and this is a really big part, but I started getting nosebleeds, and the restaurant that I worked at had ribs that they would cook in the big cookers in the back. And I talked to my doctor about it, like, these are bad nosebleeds, like gushing blood all the time. She said, oh, it's probably just from the dry air. It's really cold outside. It's December, January, February. It's normal, which nosebleeds are normal during pregnancy. And then I would get really bad heartburn. When I started getting bigger, I would crave like candy and fruit. Pretty normal. I was in labor for 30 plus hours and I pushed for 2.5, but totally worth it. Sorry, again, I do not want to forget anything. So after I had Hayden, he was 12 days old, and again, I'm going to make another video on postpartum depression. It's a rough one, a very emotional one, and if I get emotional during this video, I'm sorry. This is very personal and very hard to talk about, as open as I am, but sometimes you get emotional and that's okay, let it out. So when he was 12 days old, I wasn't getting much sleep. I kind of wanted to do everything by myself. My mom stayed with me and Hayden's dad to help, but I kind of wanted to do everything by myself. Hayden's dad would work the next morning, so I would just have Hayden in my room. Hayden, like his mother, is very stubborn. He doesn't like to sleep. He still doesn't. He's almost a year old. So I would sleep with him, and I made it comfortable, and I made it safe, and I made sure I had enough room. I co-slept with him on my chest. That is the only way this baby would sleep. And if there's any mothers out there that have a problem with that, do not comment, because he is safe and healthy and perfect, and that is what worked best for him and I. But one morning, he was 12 days old, I woke up and I had him on my chest, and he started squirming, so I started squirming around, and I heard what was like a dripping sound. And again, I'm a new mom, I'm tired, I didn't care. I thought I left the sink on, or the shower was dripping. I was not getting up to fix that. So we start waking up more and more, and I keep hearing this dripping sound, and then I realized that I was wet. And I was like, did I really pee the bed? Like, that's not normal. I'm not pregnant anymore. I'm not having any issues. Like, and I still remember this like it's yesterday. I still have dreams about it. So I was holding him and he was kind of squirming. So I like had him like this, and I opened up my bed sheets. I had what was a rare postpartum hemorrhage. So I was bleeding out. When I say bleeding out, your normal blood count is supposed to be anywhere from a 15 to a 10, from what I remember. I think that's what they tell me. Sometimes I don't listen. But if it's anything lower than that, your blood count is low. So I got to the hospital, blood transfusion, emergency DNC. They thought that it was because I had afterbirth still inside and it was trying to get out. Not gonna go into that because it's gross. My blood count was at a 4. I was dying. I was bleeding out, but you know what? Went to a hospital, fine, saved. The hospital actually was like one street down from the apartment we lived at, super close. Everything was fine. I was really excited to get home to my baby. The doctor that I had was phenomenal. My surgeon, he's also an OBGYN. I did not have him through my pregnancy, but he was phenomenal, and he actually ended up saving my life a solid of 3 times. Once was during this emergency DNC, and I'll get into the other 2 later. I just wanted to put that out there that he is phenomenal, and I'm grateful for him every single day. He was one of the best doctors I've ever met in my life. He actually very much cared about his patients, and I love him, and I'm grateful for him. About a week later, everything was normal, everything was fine, you know. I actually ended up moving back in with my mom and my grandma because I was just going through a lot, and they helped with the baby who doesn't sleep, but it's fine. I woke up to pain in my abdomen, and I got up. I had some pain medicine from the hospitals from giving birth and my surgery and stuff, so I was taking that and it just wasn't working, and I was like, okay, what's going on? So I went to the ER, and I was having pain in my abdomen, and they were like, could it be your appendix? But before my emergency surgery, they did like CAT scans and stuff, and they were like, well, we really don't want to give you another CAT scan because you've already had it, and we don't want to expose you to radiation even more. So they call my doctor, because they said it was from like the surgery, which was a week ago, and he was like, well, did you guys check for appendicitis? And they were like, no. And he was like, we'll check. Saved my life again, because most definitely I had appendicitis. It had bursted a tiny little bit and was getting ready to rupture more. So I go in for that surgery. Again, get out, go home. Everything is okay. Everything is fine. Mother's Day. So in May, I ended up, one day I was with Hayden's dad, and I had a fever of 103, and I just knew something was wrong. I had a rash all over my body, all over, and I was like, something is wrong. I feel dead. I cannot function. I can't even think. I go to the hospital, and I have sepsis from my appendix removal. I was in the hospital for 5 days. I was in the hospital for Mother's Day, and at this point, Anybody who struggles with mental illness knows that there are some points when you feel okay, but you know something's wrong, but you just carry out through your normal life thinking you're okay and that you're a little sad or a little stressed out. And this is what I was kind of doing. I got out of the hospital for sepsis, 500 bags of IV fluids later, and I went home. And every time something happened to me, which was the hemorrhage or appendix or the sepsis, I would wake up to it. It wasn't like in the middle of the day when it hit me. I would wake up to this, which gets me into sleep paralysis. But my doctor, the surgeon that I had, I went back for a checkup, was letting him know everything's going on, and he's like, you know what, something's not right. And he went out of his way, he did all these tests on me, and I ended up having von Willebrand disease, which is when your blood does not clot. So this is what caused a lot of my issues and swelling and everything. So he saved my life, again, because now I get shots and my blood transfusions when needed and all of that. Never knew I had it, ever. So if I would have gotten in a car accident, probably would have bled out because my blood doesn't clot, and that's where those nosebleeds came from when I was pregnant. So at this point, I went to a psychiatrist because my mom was worried about me, and she was like, I just want you to go kind of get a checkup, and you know, postpartum's a really big thing. You're not ever home with the baby because you're always in the hospital. And my grandma and my mom, you know, my mom works from home and my grandma's at home, so they helped me out with the baby plenty. They were more than happy to do that. I'm very thankful for them every day for that. So I started getting sleep paralysis before I get into my psychiatrist talk. And that is when you are mentally awake, but you physically cannot move. Some people have it to where they see stuff, they can open their eyes. I don't open my eyes, thank God. Sometimes I hear things, like one time I heard like a dog growling. I would have these dreams that I would have sleep paralysis, and then I would wake up to sleep paralysis. So I'd have dreams where I can't move and I can't scream, and then I would wake up to the same thing, and it was terrifying. And then this led to kind of sleepwalking. I would wake up and I'd be across the room. My sleepwalking was really fast. I didn't have it for like hours or minutes at a time. My brother has sleepwalking too. He's always had it, which is really weird. He'll be like on the kitchen floor in the morning drinking lemonade, but I don't have that. So it caused that. So I went to the psychiatrist, and she medically ordered that I cannot sleep in the same room as Hayden because, you know, it's dangerous. I'm having sleep paralysis. I can't wake up. What if he needs something? What if he can't breathe? What if I sleepwalk and pick him up? That destroyed me a little bit. At this point, I started kind of what I say losing it. She put me on 2 medications, and I'm not dogging her whatsoever. This was not the doctor for me. I should have automatically been put on an SSRI, which is a serotonin uptaker. She put me on a anxiety medication, a benzo, and she put me on sleeping medication. I kind of want to get into this really fast before I go into going back to work. The sleeping medication that I was on, I ended up becoming very, very, very addicted to. And it was a long kind of 1-2 month struggle. I was very, very addicted to it. And, you know, I wasn't able to sleep with the baby in my room. So I just kind of, unfortunately, let it go on. And I was like, you know what? It's okay. Nothing's going to happen. You're in bed. Enjoy this. And I got myself into a little bit of trouble with it because it was starting to make me sick. Anybody that struggles with addiction knows that you do things you're not proud of. I would starve myself all day long so that it would work better, and I would take more than I really needed to. But we realized what was happening when it got bad and went back into the doctor and got off of it. Now, when I go back to work, I'm still on this medication for like 2 months more, so I just want to put that into effect. I went back to work, and I was a server. I just want to put out that at this job that I worked at, these people are my family. Every single one of them, almost. They are some of the best people I've ever met in my life. They have stuck through me through thick and thin. I love them so much. I will forever be grateful for this job and the people that I've met through this job. So I was very excited to go back to work. When I was pregnant, I was 21. I have never been a huge drinker, but after our shifts, our long shifts, it was starting to get summertime, springtime, we were very busy. My friends were like, hey, let's go out for a drink before you go home. Cool, normal, nothing crazy. Would go into the bar for 30 minutes, have our drink, talk about work and whatever, and go home. Sorry, I gotta flip the page. So, this is what I mean when I get emotional. It's very hard to think about the things I did and the person who I was. And for me, part of coping with my mental illness is also maturing from it. And in my case, not using it as an excuse for everything that I did. People with mental illness are 90% of the time not bad people, but we make mistakes, and that's okay because we learn from that, and then from then on we can learn more and we can get better. So every weekend after our long shifts, we'd go to the bar and we'd have a drink. This one weekend, Hayden was with his dad's family. So I knew I didn't have to be home to sleep and to get up in the morning, because I would get up in the mornings and I'd automatically go to him because I couldn't take care of him when we were sleeping. One weekend we went to the bar and we all had a really, really rough day at work. It was super busy, it was crazy, cleaning lots. We didn't get out till late. It was already like midnight, 1 o'clock. I ended up having a lot to drink. And I remember this was on April 26th. Why I remember that, I don't know. This is when I started what I call losing it. I am not an alcoholic. I do not like to drink. I do not have to drink. But being young, I'm 22, almost 23. As you very well know, it's normal to go out and party sometimes. So this night was a little crazy and I went over the edge. It's fine, learn from it. We all have those nights. After this night, it was a repeat every weekend and repeat every weekend and repeat every weekend. And I just want to say, I was always home in time and in the morning to take care of my baby. I was not sleeping, not taking care of myself, not being healthy, but I was there. So the next couple months, so at the end of April through the end of June, how many, 2 months? Oh my God, wow. I started going out and doing a lot of bad decisions and a lot of things I'm not proud of. And in my brain, I was like, oh, you've been through so much. This is okay. Don't feel for a little bit, which is not healthy. I was not going to my therapy appointments. I was not going to my doctor's appointments. I was sick. And I remember one of my managers at work, one day, I still feel so bad about it because she was just trying to help me. She was trying to give me mom love. But I remember she was like, this is not the Lana I know. Like, it was like at the end of the shift. And she was like, I'm worried about you. This is not the Lana I know. Like, where'd you go? And I went off on her. I was like, leave me alone. Like, why are you judging me? Why are you talking to me about this? I'm fine. So I ended up quitting that job. Not because of her, but just like, I would get angry a lot and, going out every weekend, being tired, not doing my best at work kind of ordeal. So I started working somewhere else. It was actually closer to home, so that was fine. I worked at a marina and I was outside, I was bartending, I was serving, middle of summer. I had a great time. I was always tan and, it was closer to home. So this was still kind of in that effect of me going out partying, blah, blah, blah. On my 22nd birthday, I decided that was enough. I was exhausted, I was tired, I was wasting money, it was stupid. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. I remember I went and crawled in my mom's bed the morning after my birthday. I was like, Mom, I'm sorry, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm tired. And she was like, okay, let's start going back to your therapy appointments. Let's go talk to the psychiatrist, this, and that. So I go to my psychiatrist appointment, and first off, what I'm going to say about medications, what works for you might not work for me. What works for me might not work for you. That is okay. So this is just my personal experience with my mental illnesses and how these affected me. I go back to the doctor, my psychiatrist, and she puts me on Lexapro. Lexapro is an SSRI. Right off the bat, I started to have panic attacks, which I think I kind of started the panic attacks before the right before I started the medicine anyway, but they were worse. I was sweating all the time. My hands were so sweaty, my feet were so sweaty. I would either sleep too long or I couldn't sleep at all. Some nights I would lay in bed and shut my eyes and I couldn't sleep even though my eyes were shut in the dark for 8 hours. It was traumatizing, and honestly, at this point, I was already off the sleeping med, all that, and I think that had a little bit to do with it, with the not being able to sleep, because it's a sleeping medicine that I was addicted to, and I didn't have it anymore. Panic attacks, for me, I had more of mental panic attacks. I had a lot of physical ones too, but mine were a lot along the line of the mental ones. And what I mean by that, and they would hit me really bad when I was driving. So I would be driving to work and trying to listen to music, and then all of a sudden it felt like I wasn't real. It felt like I was in a dream, and that really freaked me out, which I later learned that is called depersonalization. If anybody's ever had that, they know how terrifying it is. It feels like you're in a dream. It feels like you're not real, and it's confusing because you know you're not sleeping. It's horrible, and I've actually done my research on it. I've talked to my doctors about it. It is when your brain is so overwhelmed. It's kind of its defense mechanism for trying not to go into shock, even though you wouldn't go into shock for that. It's your mind trying to protect itself because you're so stressed and you're so overwhelmed. I started having the stress from that, and I have OCD. I would obsess over it. I thought I was going crazy. Led to the physical ones. I'd be driving, my heart would race out of my chest. I would get that mental feeling again. I was sweating. I had no idea what was happening to me. A lot of people have nausea and vomiting with their panic attacks. I don't know how I didn't. So I was taking my anxiety medication more and more and more. I was not addicted to this anxiety medicine. A lot of people are. It is a benzodiazepine, so a lot of people are, but I was not. I would take it and I was taking so much because I was having panic attacks every 3 minutes, every 5 minutes. You know, when I was at work, I was able to control it a little bit, but so I went back to the psychiatrist. She was like, okay, maybe we just need to up your dose on your Lexapro. So we did that. Nothing was getting better. Everything was getting worse. I felt it crumbling. I felt so hopeless. I was like, what is wrong with me? And my mom and my doctor, they were like, you just have to give the medicine time to work. You have to give it time to work. I started having obsessive thoughts over dying. I was very scared I was going to die all the time. This also ties into my PTSD because I went through 3 to 4 traumatic events in a very short time period, the fourth being finding out I had a blood disorder. That's actually really hard for me to talk about. I'm not sure why. It just really affects me because what I have is so rare, and the type I have is so rare. I feel like anything could happen to me. If I felt a little dizzy, I automatically thought I was having a seizure. I thought I was having a stroke, and I still struggle with this. I do. It's just not, it's not bad. It's just thoughts that I can be like, oh, that's not happening. I convinced myself I had serotonin syndrome from being on a low dose of an SSRI. I remember one night I checked my fever and it was low. It was like 97.5. So I drove myself to the ER because I thought I was dying. And they were like, you're just a little cold. It's okay. And always a seizure, always a stroke. That was like my main thing. Anytime I was like, that must be why I'm feeling so weird. And everything I went through, I've talked about it in therapy, and they're like, that's normal. That's PTSD. What I went through, that's normal. And started working on that. And then all of a sudden, I went from scared of dying to waking up at 5, 6 in the morning, going on the back porch, smoking a cigarette. My mom would wake up and find me on the back porch sobbing. And I want to talk about what I call the dark feeling. There was a night, I remember when I first got it. My friend and I, Hayden was at his dad's, so my friend was like, and at this point I was having a really hard time driving. And I lived in a state that's very large, and it takes you an hour, hour and a half to get to different places, even to drive to Target. And I was having a hard time driving, but I tried to focus on music and just getting there, and that I was okay. So my friend was like, Lana, like, it's almost the end of summer, like, please, at this point it was like August. She was like, come on, let's go swimming at the lake, let's watch a sunset. I was going through relationship problems at the time. She was like, let's just take your mind off it, let's go out on the boat. And I remember I went up into my room to get ready, and I felt like I needed to lay down. And I did. And I felt the darkest feeling, like in my stomach and in my chest. And anybody that deals with depression and anxiety, I'm sure you can relate. It felt like there was a black shadow squeezing me, and anything I thought about couldn't make me happy. Nothing. It was terrifying, and that would shortly end. And then, I'd go into panic attacks, and then I'd go back into that, and then panic attack, and then, worrying about my baby and if I'm being a good mom, and postpartum, and just everything was crashing down on me. This is very important to throw out. When I would get that dark feeling, this is when I felt my most hopeless. This is when I felt it couldn't get any better. The way I would explain it is, it was pure mental pain. Pure mental pain. Sorry, my phone stepped on. It was pure mental pain. And trigger warning, this is when the thoughts of suicide came to me. Because when you're in that, you feel like it's never gonna get better. And I'm just gonna throw this out now for anybody watching. I never thought I would feel better. I never thought that I would get out of that, and that is depression, and that is anxiety lying to you. Because I am functional. I had a long fight, but it was worth it, and I am better. I don't have that anymore. It goes away. I remember crying to people. I was like, please tell me I won't have this one day. And they were like, you will not have this one day. And I didn't believe it, and I don't have it anymore. And that has been from hard work, from therapy, medications, self-love. So I just want to put that out there for anybody struggling with it. So this was my breaking point. I, one night, drove myself to the ER because I couldn't take it. And if I didn't go somewhere safe, I wasn't safe. And I remember they gave me more anxiety medicine and let me sleep it off. And they said, well, there's no available spots in hospitals, so you're free to go. After I went in there and told them I was suicidal. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is like God telling you you're strong. It's okay, like, go home. I went home and I slept, and I woke up in the morning and I just looked at my mom. I was like, Mom, if you don't take me anywhere, I can't do this. She takes me in there, and this is where I want to get on the stigma of mental health. I don't know if it was because I lived in a smaller city, because the second time I went into the hospital, I was in a much bigger city, and it was very easy to get in. I just walked in and I was like, help me, and they took me. I had, and thank God my mom was here for this, because I still can't even believe it was said to me. I had a nurse come in, and they said, well, when you talk to the social worker, you have to tell them, I don't want to be here. I'll do this if you let me leave. I will do this. Like, I need help. And he said, you have to basically beg them to put you in a mental facility because it's a lot of paperwork on their side. Why is saying I'm sick not enough? Like, even my mom said, I've always heard mental health is hard to get into, but I didn't believe it until now. So I pretty much convinced the social worker to admit me into a mental facility. Now, I just want to say something about mental facilities. A lot of people, especially people with mental illnesses, they're kind of skeptical of them because they're called like a psych ward. Honestly, not like that. There are so many normal people in there. I was in a mental facility. There was a mental health therapist who is very educated on depression, anxiety, mental disorders, who was admitted for depression. I was in there with nurses and doctors. Yeah, there's some interesting people in there, but 80% of the people were everyday normal people just struggling with something. When I say I was in there with nurses and doctors that were admitted into the hospital, either struggling with bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, panic disorders, all of it. I just know a lot of people are skeptical of it. They think you're going to go in there and there's going to be people tied up and out of control. Not like that. We watched Footloose and we colored and we went to group and we ate. And, you know, another good thing about being in a mental facility is that they can automatically start you on medicines. And when you go in there and you're talking to these mental health specialists and doctors, I don't want to use the word normal, but when you're talking to people who understand, you kind of start calming down. You're like, okay, this is a chemical imbalance in my brain. It's okay. It's not as bad as, you know, maybe I thought, or maybe it is really bad. The second time for me was really, really bad, and that's okay. But it gives you kind of like, it gives you hope. And, you know, I went in there, I was like, I'm going to be in here for a month. I'm crazy. I'm going to be in here for years. I was there for 5 days. So I get out of there. Sorry again, I do not want to forget anything on you, especially in this part because it's so important. I have don't give up in really big quotes. Very important because I'm in my bedroom at 4 in the morning trying to help people and I'm not where I was. It is 110% possible to get better always, no matter what age, what you're going through, always possible. So do not ever give up hope. Get there, make it happen, and do it. You know, people with, again, I'm very blunt. I am very sensitive with it, but I'm very blunt. That is how that's how I got through it. I made myself mentally strong. So I go into the first mental facility and I got diagnosed with postpartum depression. I did have postpartum depression. I still do have postpartum depression. So they upped my dose to Lexapro even more, and I get out. Anybody who knows about SSRIs, so they make you feel foggy, you know, I was still sweating all the time, foggy. It was not working. And a couple weeks later, I lost control again, and I was not, again, anybody with mental health, OCD, BPD, schizophrenia, bipolar, your heart does not mean to hurt the people you love, but you get so out of control and overwhelmed, you make bad decisions, and that's okay because that is how you learn from it. I started losing control again, and I ended up moving back home. It was good for me. Before I get into moving back home, I just want to say, people who are suicidal or going through things, most of the time they want to feel related to because they feel so alone. And I have a friend of mine, she is such a good person. She is amazing, and in my last video when I started talking about her, I started crying, so I might do it again. She's an amazing friend, amazing mother. I love this girl. And I don't want to say this because I don't want people to hold on to things when they're going through it, because it should be all in yourself and strength and hope. She is one of the reasons why I'm sitting here today, and that is because when I was having a panic attack or a bad thought, she would pick up that phone and be like, hey, I love you, you're okay, you're beautiful. And that is why I kept going. So that's what I'm saying. Like, when people are talking to you about depression and anxiety, they're not doing it out of attention. They just need to be told sometimes that they're okay. And that's the thing she did. I still talk to her sometimes when I get anxiety, and she goes, you're okay. And I'm like, oh, I am okay. I'm normal. I'm talking, I'm breathing. I am okay. I just want to put that out there because, you know, there were days, this poor girl, I would call her every 20 minutes. I'm like, is this normal? Is this normal? Is this normal? Like, help me. She's incredible, and she has some of the same things I do. So she was I'm gonna get emotional. I can't talk about her anymore, even though I love her. So I moved back home. It is a big city where I live, and I was doing okay. When I say okay, I mean I was just living. I got to see my dad for the first time in a little bit, and then I started getting sick. I started getting that dark feeling again. And this is what was the worst for me, and I still struggle with it. I started getting paranoid. When I say paranoid, I mean paranoid. There was this one day I was on my period, and I went to my friend's house, and I was like, there's a chocolate bar in the cabinet. Can I please have it? And she was like, that's really old. You don't want it. And I was like, I don't care. It was a big Hershey bar. I took 2 bites of this Hershey bar, and I thought, because the high school I went to was kind of like a hippie high school, and automatically my brain started rushing and rushing. I was like, oh my God, what if this is from high school? Like, what if someone just left it over here? Would it have drugs in it? Full-on panic attack, because I thought I just ate a hallucinogen drug because it was laced, or that I was going to die from eating chocolate. And this is when I started getting sick. The next day I actually was going into work, and I put on fake eyelashes. So I had like my eyelash glue, and I got like the tiniest bit of residue on my finger. And then anybody who puts on eyelashes knows what I'm talking about, just that little bit of residue. It wasn't like actually on my finger. So I was smoking a cigarette before work. Again, don't smoke cigarettes. It makes mental health worse. I picked it up during mine. Bad decision, but I'm trying to quit. I want to quit. But and I remember I was smoking a cigarette, and I remembered that I had just applied that glue. So I called my friend, full panic attack, because I thought that that glue that was on my finger got on my cigarette, and that I must have smoked glue, and then I was gonna start hallucinating and dying. She's like, baby, no, that's not how that works. Like, she was like, you know, check your hand, and this is a big thing with OCD, this is things right here. She's like, check your hand, is that residue still in there? And I was like, yes. And she was like, there's no way, you had it on the filter, you can't, it doesn't work like that. And I was so sick. And I remember I was working, I was bartending at the time, and I remember going to a computer to put in an order, and I felt that dark feeling again. Went to the bathroom, and I just cried, and I was like, no, not again. Like, this medicine has to be working. I can't do this again. I can't switch medicines. I started getting these thoughts. They are called intrusive thoughts. Everybody has intrusive thoughts, but people with OCD, you obsess over them until they give you anxiety and panic attacks. So the way my doctor described it to me the second time I went to the hospital was that if you were on a balcony, do you ever think like you would imagine throwing yourself off even though you would never do it? You just think of really weird things. You think of, you know, being in the car, and what if someone just hits you? You imagine yourself die. Some things don't even make sense that you think about, and you're like, what did that just come from my brain? But it freaks you out. They're terrifying sometimes, and everybody gets them, but people with OCD, your anxiety gets so bad and you obsess over it, they become constant. I was convinced at that time I had schizophrenia, even though I have never hallucinated or heard things in my life. I thought that I was going into psychosis, which is a very serious matter. I was not having psychosis, though. I was completely convinced I was having psychosis. There's still days when I feel like a little off, and I'm like, what if I'm going into psychosis? And my friends are like, no. I ended up being very sick, and I admitted myself back into a hospital. This is when I walked in. I was like, please help me, I'm not safe. And they were like, okay, let's do your intake, let's get you in. I remember that very next morning, actually the night I got in there, you know, again, fully normal people, rich people, poor people, young people, old people. Just, you know, you don't walk in there and there's people like crawling on the floor. That's not how it is. It's everyday normal people. Again, there's some weirdos in there, but that are coming off drugs and stuff. I don't want to say weirdos, but because everybody struggles with things, but you know, people who don't intentionally care about themselves. And there are some people in there that are homeless and are in there just to eat, and they're not in the right mindset. They don't want to get better. People that are in there want to get better. And it's, again, everyday normal people. You know, I was in there with 18-year-old kids. A lot of these people I still talk to. I have them on my social media. They have family, they have pets, they have everyday jobs. Like, they laugh at things, they watch movies, they are so normal. And I just want to get that out there because it's important, because I feel like a lot of people are scared to go into these mental facilities because they think that, oh, that makes me crazy, and then they end up getting sick. But the next morning anyway, I woke up and my doctor woke me up at 7 in the morning. Again, one of the best doctors I've ever had. She saved my life. And I remember just her sitting there talking to me, and she said that thing about the intrusive thought, and she was like, you have OCD. And I was like, again, I was uneducated. I had no idea what OCD was. I always thought it was just like cleaning and this and that. No. And I got so mad. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, these people keep misdiagnosing me, and I'm frustrated. Like, I know I'm crazy. Just please help me. And she was like, no, let me tell you something about OCD. And there are many different types of OCD. Before I get into that, she was like, here's some Zoloft. Let's switch you on Zoloft. Lexapro. Lexapro does work for depression and anxiety. Zoloft is one of the medications over research that does very, very well with OCD. So she switched me to that. They say there's not a miracle drug, and that, you know, you do have to work through therapy and stuff, which is very true. Zoloft saved my life. I don't have side effects from it whatsoever. Not one side effect. And it makes me functional. I still get paranoid. I still have intrusive thoughts. But it's kind of like when normal people get paranoid and have intrusive thoughts, because everybody does. And I'm able to function. I'm able to tell myself, hey, you're okay, go on. But, you know, I was just so stressed out. When she informed me on OCD, I was so thankful for it, because I had no idea there were so many different types. Mine, I have fear of contamination, and I have like the fear over my health. What's it called? Why can't I think? Hypochondriac. I am a hypochondriac, OCD, contamination. So say I drop a cigarette on the floor outside, I cannot pick that cigarette back up, because in my brain I think, oh, what if someone stepped in gasoline and there's gasoline on the floor, and I go to pick that up and I smell gasoline? Or, you know, if I go to wash my makeup up at night and I have like a makeup remover wipe, I have to wash my hands, because I'm like, what if that chemical gets on my food? What if it gets in my drink? What if I ingest that? What if it hurts me? Anything with the floor, really. I remember being little and like dropping an ibuprofen or something on the floor and being able to pick it back up. Nope, cannot do that, because what if there's dirt? What if the dog like stepped in something outside and now it's there? Cannot do it. There are many different types of OCD. There's my kind. There are also kinds with cleaning. There's checking. There is, I just don't want to miss any of these. There's fear of germs. There are people who obsess over religions. It's kind of like if they think they're not being good enough, or if they don't do something or check something, something terrible is going to happen. Anything obsessive, compulsions, just ritual, anything like that. And that's what OCD is. And I'm working on it, but I get so offended when I get on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and someone's like, oh, cleaned up my living room today, I'm so OCD. In my mind, I'm like, no, like, you don't get to, if I want to brag about that, I can brag about that, because I fight it every day of my life. And just because you clean your living room or you like to clean does not make you OCD whatsoever. I'm working on it, but it makes me really, really mad. OCD, it's obsessive thoughts and compulsions and intrusive thoughts and fears. It is not cleaning your living room or cleaning your kitchen. Sorry, just gonna put that right out there. But again, a lot of people are miseducated, and that's another reason why I wanted to make this video, because I had no idea. I had no idea. A really good, if you want to understand OCD, a really good documentary to watch, Howie Mandel, the guy that was on No or No Deal, he has OCD, he is a germaphobe, and if you watch that, you will kind of understand it a little bit more. He, yes, in the way of contamination, but not so bad, but anything germs, he can't touch people. There's a part on it where when he had kids, he had actually a separate house in the back of their house because the kids would crawl on the floor, and he was scared that those germs would get on him and kill him. That's OCD for you. But no, that's a really good documentary to watch, and watching his struggle and how he grew from it, the help he got from it. It was actually really inspiring to me. I loved it. I don't think I can say anything more about OCD because that's pretty much it, but obsessive compulsive. One thing I want to put out there is self-love is very, very, very important. And that's something I'm working on too, especially with having borderline personality disorder. I don't always put myself first. I actually have never put myself first, and I'm really excited for this upcoming year because I'm working on it, and I'm learning, and I'm figuring things out for myself, and sometimes you mess up. I remember the first time I went into the hospital, I had nurses tell me, they're like, you know what, if you have a setback and you mess up and you get sick again, that's okay. Do it again. Keep fighting. You're going to get better. Even just from drinking more water in a day, or, you know, painting your nails, just doing something for yourself out of self-love makes you feel better, and it does help with mental illness. Another thing I want to say, you know, I have a lot of people in my life that even say, that do struggle with mental illness, say, I don't want to go to therapy. I can't talk about my problems, and I used to be like that, but the thing is, when you go to therapy and you get in there and you start talking about it, and your therapist is like, yeah, I understand, yeah, that happens with people who have that, it makes you feel so much better and so much healthier, because it's just knowing you're normal. And anybody with mental illness is normal. You know how many people have mental illnesses? Depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar, whatever the case may be. Sorry I keep touching my nose, that's gross, but I'm really cold and I think I'm getting sick. But it's just, self-love is so important to me, and that is one thing that has really helped me and made me who I am at this point in my life, because if you take care of yourself and you love yourself, that means you can love your family, you can love your children, you can love your friends, and you can be happy, you can love your coworkers, and you can just take care of yourself. And it's the best way to live life, I think, is being happy. But yeah, that's about it. This video has been going on for an hour. If I forgot anything, I'm sorry, or have any questions, let me know. But this is, again, why I want to start YouTube. I want people to be informed. I want to spread out hope. When I got really, really sick, you know, I had no idea what OCD was. I didn't know to look it up. And there's actually, from my point of view, not a lot of videos on OCD, especially from people, because, you know, like girls like me, like if you have a problem, you like to watch girls on YouTube talk about stuff because you can relate. And that's why I wanted to do that, because there's not a lot on it from what I can find. And again, I'm very honest. If anybody has any questions, I'm very honest, and I'm going to tell you the truth. But another thing that's true, it's gonna get better. It does. And I never thought it would. And it 110% does. And that's all I want to spread out there is hope. So I am very excited to start this. I hope it goes well. I hope I go through making 10-hour videos and it helps even one person. I don't care. I don't want anybody to feel like how I felt. So I'm excited. I just want people to relate and be happy and healthy and take care of themselves. So I'm gonna end this video now. I am tired. I need to go to bed, and hopefully this helps people. That's all I want.